Okay, so we are in suborder Mysticeti now. So if you take Cetacea, okay, you can split cetaceans into two groups. Okay, you have Mysticeti and Odontoceti. Okay, Mysticeti are going to be the larger baleen whales. Okay, and when we say baleen, what we mean is they, instead of having teeth, they have this stuff in their mouth that's called baleen. And essentially, what baleen is it's kind of like their teeth, but it's made out of keratin, okay, which is the protein that's found in your hair and your nails. Okay, and those are protein fibers that are like woven together and then kind of formed into these plates. Okay, and these plates, this is what it looks like. I actually have a piece right here. Okay, this is a piece of real whale baleen. This is a gray whale's baleen. Um, this is keratin, same stuff that your hair and your nails are made out of, and it's fused into these hard plates. Okay, and you see how like the edges right here, you've got some kind of hairs coming off of there. You see that? Okay. These little hairs, they're broken because this is dried and stuff like that, and it's been passed around. But these are typically longer. Okay. And so these things hang down from their upper jaw. All right. And they've got a bunch of these side by side. Okay, all back to back, all around on their upper jaw. And these are what they use to feed. So they'll open their mouth, they'll take a big gulp of water and food, whatever's in the water. Then they'll close their mouth, okay, and these little hairs will overlap with the hairs on the other plate that's right next to them. And the whale will then take its tongue and use its tongue to push the water out through the baleen. These little hairs will trap the food, kind of like a filter, and then the whale will lick the food off of its baleen and swallow it. Okay, does that make sense? You can see back there I have a bunch more of the baleen. Okay, so you can kind of see like how it's stacked like that. So it's like a bunch of them all close together. And it's normally not curved like this. Okay, it's curved because it's like dried and stuff. All right, so it would normally just be straight. All right, and I'll pass this around so that you can look at it. Please be careful with it. It is fairly delicate, and you can get splinters. So make sure that you are careful. And like it's kind of starting to decay up here because it's dried and stuff. So just be careful. All right, but you can look at it. So that's a gray whale's baleen. So the animals that are found in this suborder, Mysticeti, have baleen rather than teeth. Okay, in the other suborder, Odontoceti, okay, they have teeth. So you can remember that because like orthodontists, right? You go to the orthodontist to get your teeth worked on. Odontoceti have teeth, okay? Whereas Mysticeti have baleen. And the size of the baleen is actually going to tell you a lot about what those animals eat. So if they have like a finer filter, okay, they're going to be eating smaller animals, right? Where if they have like shorter baleen that doesn't have as fine of a filter, they're going to be eating larger animals, okay? So their baleen will tell you something about what they eat. This picture on the right here, that's the top of a whale's mouth. Okay, so you can kind of see like all the hairs and stuff as they hang. Okay, so that's going to be the top of a whale's mouth. All right? Crazy, huh? Okay, other characteristics of animals in this suborder, they have two blowholes. So that means that they have like basically two nostrils on the top of their head. So just like you have two nostrils, okay, they have two nostrils. You can actually tell by the spout when one of these animals breathes whether they're in Mysticeti or Odontoceti, because Mysticeti have two blowholes, so you'll see like a double spout, whereas Odontoceti only have one, so you'll just see a single spout. So you can tell from a distance what kind of whale it might be. And then these whales also do not use echolocation. Do you know what echolocation is? Okay, what is it? Bats have it, yeah, that's true. Exactly, it's sonar, right? It's basically sonar. So these whales do not have echolocation, okay? So they don't need it, they don't use it, they don't have it. Okay, whereas Odontoceti will have echolocation. We'll talk about how that actually works. Okay, but they don't have echolocation. This picture is to show you the different sizes of baleen, and just to give you kind of an idea. So that piece of baleen that's going around, that's like, I don't know, like 3 feet. Okay, it's actually longer because the top kind of broke off because of one of my other classes. That's a gray whale. Okay, that's a gray whale's baleen right here. Okay, so compare that to The right whale, up there at the top. The right whale's baleen will be over 6 feet tall. So like it'll be taller than I am. All right. So it's got a super, super long baleen. And what it eats is copepods. Do you remember copepods? Okay. Yeah, they're like microscopic. We looked at them under the microscope first semester, and you like drew them, right? They're kind of like the bug-like looking things. Those, careful, those are copepods. So they have these big, long, right whales have big, long baleen with a super fine filter so that they can eat these little teeny, teeny, tiny animals in the ocean. Does that make sense? Okay. Here's humpback whale, blue whale, gray whale, so on and so forth. This picture is to show you just the kind of a size, give you an idea of size for these animals. Here's the blue whale. Okay, hold on. This is a blue whale. So that's 100 feet. Okay, that's the largest animal to ever have lived on Earth. And then compare that with a bottlenose dolphin. Okay, that's the size of a bottlenose dolphin. So you can see they are large. Blue whales are huge animals. Okay, and then here's like an orca, right? So a shamu. Okay. So you can see these baleen whales. These are all baleen whales right here. Okay. The baleen whales are the largest of the whales. Okay, so they are the large animals. Whereas the toothed whales, the whales that have teeth and eat things like fish and other mammals, they're much smaller. Okay? And we'll go out into the hallway and we'll hold a rope that's 100 feet long just to give you like a visual of how big a blue whale actually is. Because it's hard to visualize 100 feet. So we'll look at that. Oh, forgot. Notice in these pictures that these whales have like lines underneath their throat. You see that? Okay. Those are actually throat grooves. So any whales that have these are called rorquals. Okay, R-O-R-Q-U-A-L. And what those do for these whales is it helps to expand like their throat so that they can take bigger gulps of water in as they feed. So what they'll do is they'll swim up to like their school of fish that they want to eat, and then they'll open their mouth right before they get there. And these throat grooves help to expand that throat so they can take like a giant mouthful of water. All right? So they're able to feed more efficiently that way. So they're called rorquals, and that's why they have the little throat grooves. So feeding strategies, different feeding strategies that Mr. Seti can have. They can be surface feeders, and they'll basically sieve or filter the surface of the water. So the bowhead whale and the right whale do this, and they're the ones that have the biggest baleen. And so they will swim at the surface of the water with their mouth open. And as they swim, okay, they've taken all this water, close their mouth, and filter out all of the plankton. And so you can see that's a picture of a right whale filtering at the surface. So you can see just like how large the baleen might get. Right? And so they're going to swim at the surface and get those copepods out of the water. Lunge feeding is also a type of feeding that you'll see in baleen whales. That's when the whales will swim towards the school of fish or the school of krill, and then right before they get there, they open their mouth, okay? And that when they open their mouth, that expands their throat, keep swimming towards the school of fish, and then close their mouth around a large portion of the school of fish. And then they'll use their tongue and push the water out of their mouth, and then lick off the fish or krill and swallow them. So lots of different kinds of whales do this. The picture on the right is a picture of a blue whale surface lunge feeding. But you also get like the fin whale, the sei whale, humpback whale. Most of the types of whales feed this way, right? And then here on the left, you can see pictures of like how those throat grooves actually work to help to expand the mouth of the whales, right? Crazy, huh? Okay. All right, bubble netting. Humpback whales do bubble netting. And what they do is they can do this by themselves or they can do this in a group, but they'll swim around below like a school of fish and they will release bubbles. Okay, and I think we talked about this in this class, where the fish they're not that smart, right? And so they see the wall of bubbles and they're like, oh, can't cross the bubble wall, okay? And so they like stay inside of the bubbles, and then the whale will swim up through the middle of that with its mouth open and eat the school of fish. Okay. They're not the only ones that do that. Well, some kinds of like dolphins and stuff can do this kind of feeding method as well. But the humpback whale is, I think, the only baleen whale that does this. So you can see a picture here of how it would do that. Start down here and then swim like in a spiral, releasing bubbles as it comes up. And you can see the bubbles starting to form on the surface of the water here. And then here's the whale coming up through the middle. Okay. They can do this in groups as well, where they'll have like one whale that's making the bubble net, and then the rest of them will come up through the middle, and then they'll switch off with who's making the bubble net and who's feeding. So they can feed like that in groups as well. But that's what it looks like. Here's what it looks like when they all are feeding in one spot at the same time. So that's a big school of fish they're trying to eat. Yes, it does. Bottom feeding. The gray whale is the only type of whale that does bottom feeding. And what it does is it swims on its side, typically its right side, and then it goes down to the bottom and takes a big mouthful of mud and water and invertebrates, whatever's living in that mud. Then, like always, they use their tongue, push out the mud and water, and then swallow the invertebrates. So the gray whale is the only bottom feeder. Right? So this picture on the left, this is a gray whale taking a bite of mud on the bottom. And then as they feed, they actually like stir up lots of dirt and mud. And so you can actually see them from the air, like their feeding trails as they move around taking bites of dirt, because they stir up the mud and stuff so you can see it at the surface. And then this is on the right, a place where the tide goes out really, really far. So like the tidal range difference between high and low tide is like 50 feet or something like that. And so the whales can feed much closer to shore. And so this is a feeding pit right here. And then there's a size comparison to a person right there. Okay, so that's like where a gray whale took a bite full of mud. Okay, baleen whales that you'll see around here. You can see blue whales. Okay, blue whales stop along the way in order to feed, and you'll see them between May and August. Okay, because on their migrations they stop and feed around here. You also see humpback whales from late May to September. They also stop to feed. And then gray whales you can see from December to May as they make their long migration from Baja California up to the Bering Sea. All right. Gray whales, a lot of times you can actually see from shore. If you're just sitting on shore, because they come so close to shore to feed, because they eat the dirt, you can see them a lot of times as they come to surface and you can see their spout and stuff, which is kind of cool. These pictures on the bottom, so you can see blue whale eating krill right here. Here's a gray whale, and then these pictures on the bottom are actually some of the whales that we see regularly as they go on their migrations along our coast in Ventura. And the underside of their tails, their flukes, is like a fingerprint. So each animal has a unique coloration on the underside of their tail. And so that's how we can identify them. So these are actually like names, or well, the numbers given to some of the whales that we see regularly. Cool, huh? Okay, specimen spotlight on the blue whale, because the blue whale is just crazy cool. The blue whale gets up to about 100 feet. Okay, sometimes maybe a little bit bigger, but 100 feet on average, it's a little bit less than that. Oh shoot, it didn't save my changes. So they weigh actually more than 200 tons. So yeah, 200 tons, and their heart can be the size of a Volkswagen Bug. Okay, so you could like sit inside of their heart. there's actually arteries that you can fit through. So like you could like go through some of their arteries. That's like how large these animals are. Okay? Yeah. Crazy. The babies. So when the babies are born, they're already like I think it's 2 or 3 tons and 25 feet. When and they get nursed on this really really rich milk. They gain 200 pounds a day for the first year of their life. So they gain like a decent sized human worth of weight every day for the first year of their life. So, I mean, that's crazy. So they are some of the largest animals just like when they're born. Their tongue alone can weigh as much as an elephant. Okay, just their tongue. So they are very, very large animals. Here's a picture of one so you can just see. They're also one of the fastest animals. They can reach like 20 miles an hour, which is pretty fast. They used to be, like back in the day when whalers didn't have really good boats, they used to be like not able to be caught by whalers because they were too fast. So, yeah. And then here's a size comparison between a blue whale and one of those huge city buses. It's more than double one of those city buses. So.